Guess what, Lions? For as little as $5 a month, you can get access to exclusive bonus audio content and help this program grow by joining the Lions of Liberty Pride. To learn more, head over to lionsofliberty.com/support.
Welcome to Electric Libertyland, here on the Lions of Liberty podcast, your weekly shot of culture, comedy, and liberty with your host, Brian McWilliams.
All right, welcome to Electric Libertyland, everybody. This is Brian McWilliams, your loving host. Well, I don't love you. I don't know you well enough, but you're, let's say, liking host. And this is episode 61, meaning you should go to lionsofliberty.com/ELL61. And yes, I had to re-record this because I messed up earlier. Now, today I have a very special guest. He's been on the podcast before, and we had several requests, believe it or not, to bring him back. People demanded him, and by people I mean I think one person asked specifically to get him back on. But it is Lou Perez of We the Internet TV. He is the head writer and executive producer, making fantastic web content and entertaining/humorous videos, sniping at the current state of political affairs, as well as being a comedian and part of the comedic duo Greg and Lou. So, Lou, welcome back, my friend. How's it been?
Oh, thank you so much for having me back, and thank you for listening, for answering my request to have me back.
Oh, yes.
That's the big reveal. That's the big reveal, guys. I was the one asking for myself back.
You're like the CIA. You've got the thing where you can make several profiles to go on and you just pester people on their podcast to have you back on via different internet profiles. It's genius, really.
And what was and I kind of made a mistake. I was wearing disguises every single time I wrote an email. Apparently, you didn't see any of the disguises, so that was total waste.
But we were just talking before the podcast. You got this picture of your lovely wife. Are you married or engaged?
Engaged.
So
we get married in 6 months.
All right. Yeah. Well, see, this is all going to come in handy because you got the costumes. Once the marriage starts getting a little bit boring, that's when the costumes come back into play, and you can write her emails in costume.
Well, I wish that was the case. For those of you who've seen my face, I wear a beard. That's basically
it's not grown. It's just always glued on every morning.
Yeah, I glue it on every morning. And for as long as we've been dating, I've only shaved my beard twice, and we've been together for almost 5 years.
Whoa.
And those 2 times when I shaved my beard, I thought, all right, cool. It's like having a new dude. And she was scared of me. Like she was like a child, like scared of like, who is this weird guy with a baby face? And I want my boyfriend back.
That's what my wife says. I have the same thing. I always have a little bit of a crusty beard, just a little something. Cause I'm bald. You actually have hair though. So, I have to wear this for a specific reason to give my face some depth and some interest to it. But I do the same thing. Every time I shave my face, my wife's like, you look like a big gross baby. And I'm like, I didn't have a beard when you met me. And she's like, well, I don't know what I was thinking because you're disgusting. These are her words.
Yeah. And, I look at her and I creeped her out and she was not attracted at all. She's like, you're not getting any without a beard. So I'm gluing this sucker on, man, every morning.
I mean, what can you do? You have to do what you got to do to keep the woman happy in your life. That's all it takes. And if keeping a beard is the key to that, then we've lucked out for the most part. Because I know I don't make a ton of money. I don't know about you.
Yeah. Oh, no, totally. No, and even I've switched my diet a little bit. I'm not eating bread and pasta and all that. And I've lost some weight. I've dropped like a few pounds. And she's like, oh, don't lose too much weight. And it's like, what an amazing partner I have where I get to have, some fur on my face and a little bit of fat in my tummy, and she's cool with it. She digs it. She's into it.
Well, let me ask you this: have you seen "So I Married an Axe Murderer"?
Oh, yeah. Oh my God! One of the most underrated comedies ever.
Right, it's great. Awesome. Tommy Schlamme, fantastic writer director. So I wonder though if maybe she's just setting you up, and perhaps she is a Black Widow serial killer that has a very specific type, and she needs you to be roughly 180 pounds with a beard, and she's just kind of waiting and biding her time.
I have heard her singing "Only You."
Do you have a giant oversized poster of Atlantic City?
I think I ordered
very specific in that movie now.
Yeah, I ordered the large cappuccino. Hello.
Hello.
Wow.
Oh, Mike Myers, where have you been?
It's not so often when I can meet another man who can quote, "So I married an axe murderer." Heed, move, no.
It's like an orange on a toothpick. Such a good movie.
It's like
right. Well, I guess we should get into some sort of topics, right? Of a libertarian / news cycle. So, I wanted to talk to you, and in the preamble, when we were shooting the shit before the show, there's been a couple things that have happened in the news, and obviously there's a horrible shooting, which I talked about on my last episode, kind of giving my take on this, the reasonings behind why these shootings happen, but we've seen now the aftermath since the shooting, wherein we're learning about the police response. We're learning that this kid's in the midst of the shooting spree in the school, and the first officer on the scene, Scott Peterson, which is kind of funny.
Unfortunate name.
Really. Don't name your kid. There's Scott Petersons out there right now rushing to the courthouse to change their names. Yeah, that much we know. All in Minnesota, probably the land of Petersons. So he's sitting out there just waiting for 4 minutes while these children are being shot. Then we hear that there's 4 additional cops outside being shot. So, what are your thoughts on just the shooting in general, on the response we're seeing from the public? And then, what do we do with this? We've got a circumstance where cops are sitting outside doing nothing. And meanwhile, people are calling for us to get rid of guns and to refusing to arm teachers. So give me your thoughts.
Yeah. Well, for one, it's, obviously it's horrific, unfortunate case. And with We the Internet, we have a video about, 7 things you should know if you want to have a conversation on gun control. And we made it a while back. And unfortunately, just with the way things go, we are able to reshare it. Like I don't know however often we're able to reshare it. But with these conversations that come up, I feel like things have happened. These have happened so much that by now people should at least educate themselves on the language when it comes to guns, and at least be able to say specifically what it is that they would like to see happen. If you're moving towards gun control, okay, what specifics do you want? Yeah, and something like this just really. It's very unfortunate, and it complicates the issue greatly because it shows just so many mistakes made leading up to this. When you find out that this kid had the cops called on him multiple times.
Oh God, yeah, like almost 30 times or something, right? Something like
that. And it's a really tough thing there, where it seems like the sheriff used his pulpit as a way to pass the buck or put blame elsewhere rather than on his own department or his own deputies, and that's very unfortunate as well. For something that I've kind of been wrestling with, one thing that I've been wrestling with is. Even though there were all these signs that this kid was, obviously really messed up and was going to go, on this rampage, I do wonder where that falls on the issues of like civil liberties too, right. Because I feel like maybe a lot of the same people who would say, you should have got in there early and, taking them in or something like that might say like, well, he doesn't mean he doesn't have constitutional rights. So that's a discussion that, I think needs to happen, especially moving forward as a country.
Yeah, and I've had that same exact thought when I was talking about this issue before myself. I was in the middle of a epic rant, so it was a one-off comment. But I said that same thing. I was like, I don't want it to be like the UK, where you see in the United Kingdom, people are literally being arrested for comments they post on social media because they're considered hate speech or this and that. And you go, okay, well, that's such a violation of civil liberties, especially when it regards to social media. I'm terrified of that happening. So I can't advocate for the cops to come and kick in someone's door because of what they say online, especially when so many people. I mean, just like with gun violence in general, 99.9% of the population is going to say something very stupid on social media and do nothing about it. Whether that's, right. and it wasn't even, I guess, an outright threat. I believe it was something like, I'm going to be, I want to be a professional school shooter. I think,
right.
Which it could easily be taken in the context of a joke. We're both comedians.
A very dark humor.
Very dark, but I mean, easily you could see being on stage and be like, yeah, you know what? How many kids you got to shoot to be a pro? Because I could probably take out a few, like 12. I could get in the record books. Just a very dark joke. And would it be in good taste? No, but it would still be a joke. And to have somebody be like, okay, well, you're arrested, or now we're going to take away your ability to own guns. If we're taking into the mental health side of things, where they get reported by a friend or a family member that says, well, you know what? He said this thing about shooting kids and I think he's a danger. So you lose your Second Amendment rights, which is the path that I worry about it going down.
Yeah, and David French, who writes for National Review, brought up at this point specifically about having a judicial process where family members who are concerned about loved ones possibly doing harm to others or to themselves, it's a way to put them in front of a judge or a magistrate, or putting together a process where they can be reported to the authorities, and they could be held for 72 hours, or I'm not sure what it is exactly, but that also raises questions as well as and I'm not a lawyer, so I don't know what those ramifications would be, but another thing that kind of a lot of just violence in general, and specifically like this gun violence that I've had to grapple with, is just anyone who thinks that there is a one answer that's going to protect people, whether it's more guns, fewer guns, arming teachers and all that. I don't know what is the best solution. But I do know that I'm pretty sure that there is evil out there, without lacking a better word to say, a better word to describe it. There is evil out there. People who are looking to do harm to others, and they're out there now, right now, today. And a lot of them are armed.
Yeah.
And
well, and you look at like, sorry, let me finish your thought there. Go ahead. Sure. Okay.
Oh, no. And what is it that you do? I think you try to prepare yourself, in the best way possible. I happen to think that when it comes to self-defense, I think, guns seem like the best way to defend oneself against threats. So that's what.
Well, and it's also, you look at the ramifications of it, like whatever action you're going to take, to your point of saying, okay, well, people just want to do something, but they don't know what, they don't understand how it's going to interact. Because you look at these countries that have banned guns, right? And the violent crime rates have not gone down. In fact, a lot of the places they go up. Now, gun deaths go down. You might not have mass shootings, but you do have, like in China, a guy just killed 29 people with a knife, stab attack, 29 dead. So you say, okay, well, we might get rid of a very specific type of crime, which would be great. Nobody wants to see kids get shot. But in exchange for that, we might see a lot more deaths by assault. We might see a lot more deaths by robbery, or all these things where guns actually are a good defense mechanism. So what are we trading off is one question. And then I also, I was having a little bit of a back and forth in our Lions of Liberty forum on Facebook, which is like our group for our listeners. And I was advocating that teachers should be armed. I feel like they should have guns, because even if they aren't going to necessarily shoot and kill the person there, just being able to have the gun is a deterrent, so people know going in, people are armed in this building. So that's going to scare off a lot of people that would be shooters already. Number two, if there's a modicum of pushback and defense, and this comes from people that are doing training and are professionals, once people get that imaginary bubble broken of, I'm going to go in and get my revenge and I'm going to kill these people and this is what's going to happen. If there's a violent response, even if it's not even to hit them, just to hear gunfire, they see people are fighting back, then they go and kill themselves, or they stop, or at least, if nothing else, it's going to stop some kids from being killed.
Mm-hmm. On Twitter, I think it was Samuel L. Jackson who had a tweet like, would someone, and I'm paraphrasing, would someone with experience, would someone who's been in a gunfight tell this motherfucker how dumb it is to arm teachers or something like that. And I responded. He didn't respond to me, but my response was, basically taking his same exact tweet. Okay, would someone who's been in an actual gunfight, tell this motherfucker the pros of arming teachers?
Right,
if there's a downside, what is the what is the plus side?
Well, would somebody, here's a counterpoint to that, third counterpoint, would somebody that's been in a gunfight who didn't have a gun, please explain to this motherfucker how he would have liked to have a gun in that situation?
Yeah.
When you're just getting shot at.
That's the ultimate test, trying to catch a bullet with your hand.
Yeah, with your teeth, like in fucking, God, who is that guy? I can't remember. Fuck it. Moving on.
Yeah. But a while back, when I was co-hosting the podcast Unsafe Space, we had an episode about guns. And one of the guests that we had on was this young kid. He was 21. And when he was 12 years old, his Jewish day camp was shot up by a neo-Nazi with an Uzi. Like, this was a legitimate, this guy wanted to kill Jews and went and shot this place up. And this poor kid, was shot in the hip. And one detail came out when we were talking about it, because he has an amazing story to tell. And the one detail that came out was the guy, this monster, had originally targeted another camp, but that camp had armed security. Mm-hmm. So what did he do? Well, he got in his car and he drove down to this other camp. So I think there definitely is an element of deterrence there. And I feel like even the suggestion that arming teachers, putting that out there, of course, people need to pick it apart and, take it to the extreme. Like, oh, they're just going to give every teacher a gun, as opposed to, well, they'll probably give teachers guns who want to have a gun, or want to have that training, or have, possibly have training themselves, ex-military or police or something like that. But it's sort of like at the point, like I said before, we know right now there are people out there who are looking to do harm to people. They're out there. They're looking to do harm. And for me, as a future parent, hopefully I don't have to, think about this shit. But if I'm having kids going to school today, well, I'm definitely thinking about that, because, I don't know how you can't think about that. What is the best way to deal with someone who's coming in opening fire?
Right.
Well, to have a gun to shoot back.
Right. It seems obvious. And there's people who are saying, well, why do we just have more armed guards there? But I mean, I know there was, I believe, an armed guard at the school who didn't respond, but
I heard of that. Yeah. I'm not sure
that he also didn't respond. But I mean, I think about my school growing up. And my graduating, I just noticed because I just got invited to my 20-year reunion. And so I know exactly how many people were in the graduating class. So somebody posted, it was like 786, right?
Wow.
So a huge school. That's just my class.
Yeah.
So, and I know how many, truancy officers we had, and I don't even believe they were armed. This is growing up in outside of Philadelphia in a suburb, but maybe they had a gun in their car. But if somebody goes into any of the 12 entrances to the building and just starts shooting, they're not going to be there in time to stop, 15 kids from being killed off the bat, if they're even up to it. A lot of these guys, this is their, that's not their primary job, or they're just kind of in it for the, it's a cushy job, and they don't have to do much most of the time. So wouldn't you want the most people available to be able to return fire? And I've heard some arguments. People say, well, the adrenaline's so strong to shoot people, and how do you know you're going to miss? And like I said earlier, my argument's just, you don't even have to hit them, man. Just knowing that there's a gun, just shoot the gun in the air from your classroom, just to let them know there is a gun here that can shoot back. It's just the response to this, where people are going like, oh, that's crazy. It's like, hey, they don't even want to consider it. And to me, anything that is going to be a reasonable deterrent to this happening, let's say instead of having 10 school shootings a year, we go down to 2. That seems like a pretty good improvement. And I don't think there's going to be teachers, randomly murdering children, because they could do that right now. I don't think they're just going to snap because now they have the gun, so they're going to start shooting kids in the head.
They want to have sex with them first, if we're being honest. They want to make sure.
Or after. Let's not sell them short on their psychosis.
That is true.
You got both sides of you can make both sides of the cookie there. Well, what do you think about the survivors going on their media tour right now?
a buddy of mine, David Marcus, who writes for the Federalist, he wrote a piece about them in particular. And one of the things he brought up is, they're parading these kids, taking them all around, and who's going to have the heart to tell them like it's not going to work, like what So there is that element there. There's the other element that's a little weird is just how photogenic they are, and just how polished. And I think David Marcus actually had a line in his piece about that, about, this is a generation that's been brought up on social media, Instagram, and, forget about Facebook.
Right. They know the faces to make, and they're on the Ellen Snapchat filter. And all that. Well, it's also like, there's a white boy. Is there a black girl? And then like a shaved head girl in the middle?
Yeah, I think.
I mean, it is like Addis. It is. I'm not saying they're crisis actors, but you know what? If they are,
please don't say that. Please don't say they are.
I'm not. But and look, and if they use crisis actors, fine. Just make sure that they're union. You got people.
No scabs.
No scabs. No non-union here in LA anyway. But yeah, it's like it does look like they're straight out of Central Casting. But it just going out and seeing these kids parading around and doing this whole, they're on every show, and it's like, didn't you guys just live through a murder? Because they look like they're having a wonderful time as well, which is a little weird.
Well, yeah, they're they have like blue checks and stuff like that, and I'm not coming down on these kids at all. It's more of definitely the news media around them, right, and their parents too. Definitely have a say in this. I mean, the idea of putting your kids out there and getting some kind of celebrity off of this it's a little ghoulish,
right?
And,
exactly. And shouldn't they be in counseling or something? This happened. They immediately were out on the media tour. It's like, shouldn't you have some time to process, maybe grieve a bit if you knew them? Take time with your family, with your community. And they're just like, nope, get them out there. And these kids could not be happier to do it. I'm sure that's not the entire school that feels necessarily the same way they do, but my God, you can't look anywhere without these kids making these bold statements and the rallying cry for the anti-gun left.
Yeah. Were any of the kids like who were shot? Like, are they, going in front of the cameras or anything like that?
Not that I've seen. Not that I've seen yet. Anyway,
because if you think about it, those are the kids you want to hear from. Like, those are the hardcore kids. Not like, I think what's going to be really bad is like there's going to be some amount of infighting where it's like, well, you were actually 3 buildings over from the actual shooting, and you're just here because you're so photogenic or because you shaved your head. That's why they want. That's why they want you. So stuff like that. In a dark, dark comedy universe. That stuff is definitely there. But more than anything, though, it's sort of like, these kids obviously went through this horrible experience, and I could only imagine what that must be like, but it doesn't make them qualified to talk about anything.
Right.
I don't
know if you've seen this meme, but it was one of the funniest memes I've seen about it. It was just, it was something with like The Rock in a taxi cab. I have no idea what movie it was. Something with a kid in the back seat, but the Rock's in the front, and he goes, "So your kid's still eating those Tide Pods?" And then from the back seat, the kid goes, No, now we're experts on gun control. And then he's like, what? But that's really what it is. It's like, the same generation was literally eating fucking Tide Pods, and now they're telling us about gun rights. And also, here's what I don't get either is these kids are coming across as like they know everything that should be done. The one kid, David Hogg, I think it's Hogg or Hag, he's out there saying, well, I don't blame the cop because he's going up against an AR-15. He just was doing what anybody would expect him to do. Where if it was me, I'd be like, where was that motherfucker with his gun saving my life, saving my classmates' lives? Like this kid, right. That's where I wonder how much influence people have had around him on his talking points, because you're excusing the police for not fucking saving people in this school? Right. Come the fuck on.
Yeah, and that's the thing where, taking what the kid is saying as opposed to like aiming it at the kid, himself. And he's in a weird position. And I don't doubt that, there are people like, okay, we want you to, talk about this and talk about that, there must be some kind of like media.
Oh, he's getting media training,
media coaching.
Sure.
Yeah. Without a doubt. And, it's, I don't know, man, it's a really, really weird weird thing. I forget what I was going to say. I don't know if I had it.
Well, I'll tell you what. Let me. You could compose your brain because I'll take a quick.
This is the one thing I was going to.
Okay, go for it. Because I was
going to say, to the same point of like, this is a generation of kids who are eating like Tide Pods. One response that I've had a couple of times on like social media is, people were talking about how brave this generation of kids are, blah blah blah, and it's like, well, the shooter was from the same generation, right?
Yeah,
like,
that's a very good point.
It's sort of like that same generation also produced this piece of shit,
right?
Right. So let's not. I don't know.
And I wonder, the last podcast I did about this, basically I'd thrown out the theory that this is, it's all cultural leading to this. It's nothing that's happening in regards to gun availability, and psychotropic drugs may have something to do with it. I'm not sure if this current shooter had any psychotropic drugs in his system or not, but I was looking at, just the base causes. And for me, it seems like it's a cultural thing. It's rooted in the way children are raised. It's raised in this protectionist environment where they're just kind of coddled, and then it's combined with social media where you're depressed looking at other people's lives, living a certain way. And these kids just have no way to deal with adversity. They don't know where to turn when their lives don't turn out the way that they've been promised to by this new wave of, you're a very special person and everything's going to be great for you and there's no conflict in your life growing up. So when they do go wrong, they see what other people have done on the media and then they just kind of snap. So I don't know. What are your thoughts on the underlying causes of this? I mean, do you have any theories?
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to, speak too much on it because I'm still, trying to, just think it over. But I've been reading, Jordan Peterson has a book, 12 Rules for Life.
I need to get that book. I heard it's fantastic. It's been a great read. I'm about like 2/3 in. And in one of the chapters, or maybe a couple of the chapters, he talks about the Columbine shooters, and that's going way back, to when you and I were probably in high school. Yeah.
He said if you read their writings, and I don't know if they wrote together or it was separate their diaries, but there's a lot of stuff like human beings don't deserve to live. I want to kill humanity. I want to kill everyone. And there's this nihilism there, and you wonder how do you get down there? And I think it's it's got to be a painful process to be able to be so disillusioned and to have so much hate that it drags you down there, and to want to destroy humanity. And that's why I'll use the word evil, and it's out there, and I think a big thing is that at least that I'm, sort of grappling with, and I've used the word grappling quite often.
Don't worry. I say the phrase "and again" about 17, 18 times a podcast, and I want to kill myself every time I say it. So please grapple away.
A quick note, my computer completely froze right in the middle of this conversation with Lou. So quick break, and now here we go right back into it.
Yeah, that was weird. It just all of a sudden completely froze. And then it was all shitted up. So now it sounds fine again.
There we go. Skype just doesn't want the truth, man.
That's what it is. It's the fibbies getting in here and fucking with our shit. All right. So for the third time now.
For the third time, Lou's grappling with something. What's he grappling with, man?
It's the best cliffhanger I've ever seen.
Well, just trying to understand my own capacity or all of our own capacity to do harm to others, to hurt others in our relationships, to strangers and all that. And not just in physical ways, but, emotional ways and all that. And, trying to do as much good as you possibly can, while you're here and getting yourself off of the path towards nihilism and all that.
Yeah.
And I've experienced it myself, times where, years back or whatever, where things seem to be on a down spiral and they just keep spiraling and spiraling and spiraling. And, I was lucky to get out of that. But there are other people who aren't, as lucky or fortunate to get out of that or have the will or someone to pull them out of that, So I don't know.
It seems like there's less, and this is where I do think social media plays a component in what's happening. Not just because of what's shared, but because I do feel that people's interactions are distance now. Like, it's not the same as when we were growing up, and because people, they do have a wall, and people might interact more by posting and liking and texting. Like, you text people far more often than you would speak to them on the phone, probably when we were growing up. However, I do feel like there's been a technological wall that's put up between people, and the individual interaction, the closeness, that feeling that you're talking about humanity, and the nihilism and being distanced from humanity and wanting to end humanity is what the Columbine kids were saying, and this is back then. Right. I feel like that's even more pronounced now because of this distance. People, even though we're more social, we are also far more self-segregated in that way and don't know how to interact with people one-on-one like we used to be able to do.
Oh, totally. I can't tell you how many times I've had like a Twitter beef, that I probably started, and, it gets to the point where after a few, back and forth where the person says something and I'm like, oh shit, thank you for reminding me that I'm speaking to another person on the end of this. Right. And how important that is. And my fiance gets so annoyed with me. She's like, you always do that. You always do that. You get into this big fight, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, we share a common humanity. She's like, just stop doing it.
This is adorable. It's like you're on cocaine all the time.
Exactly. And it's something that I need to remind myself too. And it makes, social media makes it so easy for that not to be the case, especially if you can be anonymous. Mm-hmm. That's a thing that kind of, gets me, that I kind of, laugh about. It's like, oh, well, obviously you're saying this stuff to me because no one knows who the hell you are. Right. The one thing that I have is, my Twitter account is, I'm Lou Perez on Twitter. That's my picture. Mm-hmm. And if I say some dumb shit, it's going to come back to me. And, same thing on Facebook and all that, that I have to answer, for, what I put out into the world.
See, I'm lucky in that I'm at Brian McWilliams on Twitter, which you think, I'm out there, but there's fortunately for me a guy that comes up if you Google Brian McWilliams, who wrote a book on spam email. So I think that guy's probably getting a lot of people just coming at him with a lot of shit that I'm supposed to be getting. So hopefully he doesn't die anytime soon, because I need him to keep absorbing that. Right. Well, I'll tell you what, let's take a quick commercial break and then come back. We were talking a little bit about dark comedy. I want to come back and talk a little bit to wrap up the end of the guns conversation, because I do feel there's some dark comedic undertones to this, the way the sheriff's handling things, and then get into a little bit of other comedy that's going on in the world. So we'll be right back with more Lou Perez of We the Internet TV in just a moment. Hey guys, you might remember that I recently said that this is the libertarian moment, and that we need more people to stand up and run for office. Now, if you're tired of watching liberty erode and you plan to stand up and run for office, I want you to call on a team that has over 20 years experience. Global Alliance Communications. They specialize in data analytics, identifying and mobilizing voters. They offer live voter outreach, data acquisition, compliance, recorded messages, text messaging with full social media touchpoints, and teletown halls. Campaigns of all types and sizes are encouraged to reach out, and you can find out more by visiting their website at www.gacigroup.com or email info@gacigroup.com. Welcome back, guys. We are here with Lou Perez of We the Internet TV. I am your beautiful host, Brian McWilliams, as always. And a reminder that you can find all the show notes for today's episode over at lionsofliberty.com/ELL61. I said 60 at the top of the show. I'll have to fix that. And I'll have some links there to Lou's videos. We'll put a couple of them up there so you can find that and watch all of We the Internet TV's wonderful, wonderful content. So, that's weird. Can you see me right now?
No. It's all good though.
There we go. My Skype's being crazy, man. All of a sudden, I'm talking to Lou here, and usually I just do an audio, but we're using video, and all of a sudden it just cuts to 2 pictures of Lou, and I was like, is Skype trying to tell me something?
I am you. I'm inside you right now.
Oh, you're blowing
Get out of my head.
So, we mentioned dark comedy, and we are talking about a very dark subject here, which is, it's hard to make the lighter side of children dying. But I'll take a stab at it. Not a bad pun since they were shot. So one of the things that I couldn't help but just kind of shake my head and darkly chuckle at was watching the sheriff of Broward County, where the shooting took place, watching the way this man is interacting with the media. Because as we said earlier in the show, he had a deputy sit there and let children get shot. Then he had 4 more deputies sit there and just cower behind cars as children were continuing to be shot before even going in and like trying to pull out survivors or anything. And then when he's questioned by the media and called out by people for the inaction of his cops, for him himself failing to train them or to take the correct action to prevent this, he passes the buck. And in this latest interview I saw, it was I think with Jake Tapper or something like that. He's like, well, don't you feel like you should have done this? And if you had done something else, you could have saved lives. And he literally goes, if ifs and buts were candy and nuts, O.J. Simpson would still be in the record books. And I look at that and I can't help thinking of, the kind of content you put out, Lou, with We the Internet TV. And like, this is like the worst, cops episode ever, where you're just shooting an episode following the cops around and they're just sitting behind the car as children are dying as you hear the Bad Boys theme song. And then you have this cop do his Reno 911-esque press conference. So, I mean, what are your thoughts on this, man? Has the world gone so mad that satire doesn't have a place anymore? How do we parody the what is parody?
Well, it definitely makes me wonder if that was like his planned statement. He's like, this is the one. This is the one that's going to set everybody straight.
He's
guys.
got a whole room of writers in the back, Jewish and Irish writers lined up there.
Jewish and Irish line. He's like, he was like, hey, maybe I should go with crisscross applesauce. I don't know if that's gonna work.
If wishes were horses, beggars wouldn't shoot your children. That's another killer.
Was that another? Well, I think people are doing a great job as far as the memes go. Because didn't this county have like a sheriff's office have a Lamborghini?
Yes,
or something like that?
yes,
Did you see that? Like,
yeah, good use of taxpayer money.
Oh yeah, totally. Yeah, and I wonder, like, was that gotten through like civil asset forfeiture and
probably right? Florida. I think Florida's pretty high up on the list. Is Jeff? I know Jeff Sessions from Alabama, right? Because I know Sessions is a huge fan of civil asset forfeiture. I remember one press conference he had where he was crowing about it. So yeah, probably a drug dealer. Maybe it was like a cannonball run where they're racing across the border in the Lamborghini and they seized it. But then, what I wonder now is they've got this Lamborghini. Clearly the first cop was on there in plenty of time. Did he get to the scene in the Lamborghini?
In the Lamborghini. Yeah, it's like a Lamborghini and wraparound shades that he's wearing, something like that. Well, I think just talking about. I mean, this is a little bit beyond parody, but I think Ben Shapiro brought up a really good point. He's like, I am not going to turn over my weapons to this kind of law enforcement.
Right.
It's like you're not making a case, guys. You're like the idea that the citizens at large believe that you're going to be the ones to protect them. When here's one where you definitely didn't protect anybody, so having that argument right there is a little ridiculous. And then also, I think wasn't there like a Supreme Court case that ruled that police aren't necessarily obligated to save you? Like you can't sue a cop if
yes. The answer to that is yes, they did, and which makes it seems like it makes no sense whatsoever, because if that's your single duty, if that's your job. I mean, like if you're in a nuclear power plant, I guess they can't get sued. I guess they just get fired. So I guess in a way it makes sense, but it's the reasonable expectation is that you people have this power, and they have a hell of a lot of power, very much of it undeserved and I would say unconstitutional, but they do have a hell of a lot of power. But, as the exchange for that power, you are expected to at least stop people from murdering us. Is that too much to ask from our police? And also now, they don't have a private police force, which I am an advocate for. So you can't even get rid of the sheriff. They can't make him resign. The guy has to resign. They have to vote him out in X number of years.
Vote him out, right?
Yeah, you have to vote him out.
Yeah, what is that? Well, I mean, I want to see those campaign posters that, the guy running against him is going to have, because he's going to have a field day, man, with all those, little, all those rhymes that he can come up with.
I know we're both trying to think of a good rhyme right now to get the vote out, and neither of us.
No, I wish I was better at rhyming. I wish I was better at rhyming, man.
I'm trying to think of something that'll rhyme with children dying, but I can't really think of anything right now.
Children dying, but I'm rhyming. I mean, maybe that's
yeah. It's I don't think it's going to sell the candidate, but yeah, something will work. We'll get it by the end of the show, I'm sure. Maybe we'll tune in. We're going to do a little Pride bonus segment after this. Well, that's when we break out the real rhymes. Lou and I are professionals here. We know you make the people pay for the good content. That's when you're going to get the real good, funny rhymes about children dying and getting the vote out for the new sheriff, guys. So you got to pay for that. But it is truly, you could not think of something more ridiculous than all these people advocating for Second Amendment confiscation and to eliminate people's ability to own guns and rein in and have all these gun control measures pushed through, as we do, as you said, look at cops completely failing to do the job as the people that would be there as the first responders to protect us. Like, it just, you can't write it better.
Yeah, and it's just another example of you really can't rely on these institutions anymore. And as and I might be in the minority here. I do believe that there are cops out there who do really incredible stuff and really help people and do rush into those buildings and when it's needed. But yeah, it seems like, there is like a real breakdown of these institutions, and it's just so apparent now,
Yep.
It's just in the open, and it's chaotic, so.
That it is. And as well, we'll see what happens in the shakeout. They're going to make some sort of consolatory maneuvers. Trump's talking about banning bump stocks. Who gives a shit? I don't think anybody in the United States has even heard of a bump stock before Vegas. And I don't know. I saw a bill to rein in semi-automatic rifles, which I also don't support. And I think that many people use these same rifles to hunt, and they're perfectly legal to try to confiscate them. Now, there's over 1 million of the AR style rifles out there anyway. Mm-hmm. So you're just going to make 1 million people into fugitives from justice overnight. Give me a break.
Yeah, and this goes back to the video I made, 7 things you need to know before talking about gun control.
Which I will share that on the page.
Please
I'll
do.
Find it and share it.
Thank you. And I get to do the official correction. Here I am making a video telling you this is the stuff you should know before talking about gun control, and I fucked up. I end up using the wrong definition for assault rifle. Uh-huh. I mixed it up with assault weapon. So assault rifle is a real thing. Assault rifle is able to go, fully automatic, semi-automatic. It can, you can convert, between those. Assault weapon is more of a nebulous.
Right. It's a made up term. Yeah.
It's a made up term. Assault weapon is the one that looks scary. And, but for the most part, the video is doing really well. It's getting a lot of love, and a bump from Steven Crowder shared it and all that. That's great. And I like when people are like, hey, you know what? I like the video, but actually, you're talking about, assault weapon. You're not talking about assault rifle. And when I can, I say, totally right, dude. We, made the correction in the description of the YouTube video. But even something like that, like you just said, wanting to ban, the AR style, rifles. What you're asking, what you're calling for is to, basically criminalize millions of people without criminal records in the in the U.S. Unless those weapons become, grandfathered in which case it's not a ban, because those weapons
they're still out there.
Still out there. But if you're going to make a law, you got to be as specific as possible on the law, and I think that's a big problem with over legislating in general, and where if you have too many laws where a law is just not pinned down enough, it's not a good law to have, and that's the thing. Like, if you're going to be affecting people's lives, you got to be as specific as possible. You got to know what you're talking about, because there are people, there are lives that hang in the balance.
Yep. And as we've seen that in the mainstream media, people clearly do not know what they're talking about. Over and over again, you see people referring to weapons completely wrong descriptions, calling everything, blankets, like we're talking about assault weapons. I know Don Lemon had done it very blatantly, saying that he went in and bought an assault rifle. And you're like, well, no, you didn't. You didn't buy it. I bought an automatic weapon. You're like, no, you didn't, because you can't buy an automatic weapon.
Right.
So it's just like, people just They simply want to get their opinion out without actually knowing the facts, without actually knowing the what the law is on the books at the moment. So, yeah, what can you do?
What can you do?
One more thing I want to talk about because, and I apologize to my audience. I was desperately trying to pull audio to use in this clip. So we're just going to have to talk through it and I'll describe this. But you may have already seen this bit, and it was on Vice News, which, side note, what the fuck has happened to Vice? Do you remember Vice magazine when it was, 15 years ago, when it was truly a glorious shit stirrer of a magazine? It wasn't political. It was more just goofy satire and interesting feature stories. And now it just seems to be a stick circling around a very select group of assholes on the left. Like, what the fuck has happened to Vice, man?
I don't know. I mean, I remember it was like, Vice is running another, I went to the, the Westminster, dog show on LSD. Like there was like a lot of stuff, a lot of stuff like that. And there was, skate culture and street fashion, and definitely had a punk rock feel to it. I guess maybe what happened was, as I think happens a lot, is those founders, except for Gavin McInnes, McGinnis, excuse me, they grew up and they said, wow, we have this multi-million-dollar platform, and this is what we believe in politically. So we're going to use our platform to spout what we think is important. And but yeah, I think a lot of the identity politics stuff is just I just consider identity politics gross.
It's disgusting. And it's funny, I'm watching right now, and I'll get into this, what we're going to talk about in just a second, but I was watching Vice, the channel, it's like their dedicated channel on cable now on my TV, and Always Sunny in Philadelphia is on, right? Which is one of the least PC, greatest shows ever created, does not give a fuck, takes shots everywhere, just horrible people doing horrible things, and it's hilarious. And sandwiched in between every episode are these little Vice vignettes wherein they're just doing the stupidest, most identity politicking, progressive, leftist, PC bullshit. And I'm like, how do you guys not see the irony here? You're running the most un-PC show, what is comedy should be, and then you're sandwiching it in between just leftist propaganda about thought control, about don't say this, about cultural appropriation, all this other horseshit.
Right. So it's almost like you almost expect, like, between an episode of It's Always Sunny for them to do an expose on how It's Always Sunny didn't have enough people of color in the cast, or something like that.
How Rickety Cricket was homeless, and we need to talk more about the homeless problem in America. Yeah, exactly, man. So talking about this identity politics, Vice News, which is on HBO, they had a segment wherein they profiled this women's retreat, and it was an all-black, no whites allowed women's retreat that took place in the Dominican Republic. So
was it the DR, or was it Costa Rica?
I'm sorry, it was Costa Rica. You're right. My bad. Costa Rica. So they're doing this whole segment, and it's a group of probably 10 to 15 black women. And of course, the retreat costs $2,000+ to go to. So it's not cheap. You got to fly there. It costs a lot of money to do it. But just the statements in this piece were so hilarious, because it's a profile on women who wanted to get away from racism and get away from white people and get away from segregation, who are opting to segregate themselves voluntarily. And then throughout the entire piece are just literally saying that they're interpreting microaggressions from white people, even though they haven't said anything. They, perfectly nice, hadn't said anything, but they were interpreting microaggressions, and thus they had to cut white people out of their lives. And I got a bunch of notes, but I want to hear Lou's thoughts on it first before I read off some of this litany of notes I made watching this video.
I think one of the details was that the hotel or the villa, wherever they were, was owned by a white couple, right?
Yeah.
Something like that. So they're owned by white, so they can't even get away from white people in Costa Rica.
Well, and I love that the fact that they're writing it. They're like, they go up to these white people. They hated whiteys, and they go, "Hey, we want to run a no whites allowed black women's retreat on your property. Do you mind?" And they were like, "Yeah, okay, go ahead." But but if they got to escape the intolerance that's going on, I just thought that was too good.
Well, also, I think one of the women who was running it, she was building her own, sort of retreat, like bought her own land, is going to build that up, and it's like, hey man, if there's a market for it, go for it. Yeah. But I don't know how many people, how many black women out there who are, trying to get away from white people who also have $2,000 to go and spend to fly down to Costa Rica and do yoga and burn incense and all that shit and commiserate with their fellow ladies about it. That might be a very niche market. That definitely might be a niche market. In a way, like I kind of wish that Vice had sent like just a white reporter. I mean, that would have been pretty cool.
just to see them just get so angry about the being there.
To get so angry, it's like, oh my God, you are ruining my fucking vacation right now. But also, I think just in general, it seemed like, here was just a group of people who I can't imagine anyone wants to hang out with them. Like, It's just, there were no dudes there either. There was no dude scope. There was no like Stella got a groove back or anything like that.
Well, it was like some of those things where they go, this one woman from Nebraska, she's like, well, I live in a red state, so you never know. I don't know what people are always thinking about me and thinking about my race. So even though she's just presuming that people are considering her racist. So it gives you the idea of like these people are actively looking for racism. It seems to me. And then they started giving some of these crazy things. Like one person, she's like, well, people always are telling me you look really pretty for a black girl. And I'm like, people might think that, but nobody's saying that to you.
Someone saying that to her. No. Yeah, that was really weird. I think there's a YouTuber named Matthew Christensen. I don't know if you know Matthew Christensen, but
I think I do know. I'm familiar with him.
Yeah, so he did a sort of like a breakdown of the video, and one of the things that he pointed out, I guess, in regards to the woman in Nebraska, was that the crime rate and stuff like that, comparing Nebraska, say, to a heavily populated Illinois or something like that. Like, she's far less likely to be assaulted in Nebraska than in a bigger metropolitan area,
or Costa Rica for that matter.
Or Costa Rica, yeah. I mean, I have no clue how Costa Rica. I hear the surfing is really good, but
I hear the drugs are great and the surfing is good. But I'm sure like you'd be much less safe in Costa Rica, and also I'm sure if you went up to a lot of people in Costa Rica and you're like, all right, here I live in like one woman's from like New York City. And she's like, whatever. Let's say you're an ad executive in New York City, and you went up to anybody in Costa Rica and be like, hey, you want to switch? And you come to New York City, and you make this money, and you might meet a person once in a while that tells you you're kind of pretty for a black chick. They'd be like, yeah, sign me up.
Sign me up. I'll do
first plane. You come crack coconuts for a while over here, and I'll go live your life in New York City.
Yeah, someone else had pointed out. I'm not sure. I forget who it was, but there are a lot of countries that are predominantly black that, you go to, I mean, if that's your thing, if that's your kink, right. If that's what you're into.
Well, they called them out on that. The reporter, to her credit, I'll give the reporter credit for at least, this is a fairly fawning piece, but they did ask her, when this woman who owns the place had said, well, I just want to have a safe space where black people can just be alone and no white people are here. And, they give us our space and they could go be in their space. And she's like, well, yeah, but that's what Richard Spencer wants and the alt-right wants. So how is it, how is that different? Is this the same thing? And she was like, well, that doesn't have anything to do with us. This is about healing our community or some bullshit. I don't know how you mentally, you leapfrog around the fact that you're literally advocating for the same thing that you would decry as racist by a Richard Spencer.
Yeah, the whole ethno state, sort of thing, and I feel like most people, most of the figures who I see calling for an ethno state of any ethnicity are people that I have no desire to live next to. It's like I have no desire to live next to Richard Spencer or anybody else.
No, and meanwhile, if they want to do this. If you're not bothering me, if you're not aggressing against me, if you're not doing anything violent, go do it. I mean, Richard Spencer, if you want to go live with all white people in the middle of fucking Utah somewhere, go do it, man. I don't give a shit. You know, as long as you're not fucking with anybody else, go do it. If these women want to do this, go do it. But I just can't get around the just. I mean, this literally was. I was watching this and I was like, "This is a We the Internet TV video."
This is a sketch,
right?
Yeah.
Like the one where you were talking about. I think it was. You were talking about the war state, which I love. One of your best videos I've seen is the war state and what happened to the anti-war left. And I referenced this the last time you're on because it's such a great video. But I literally watch it like this is like the same thing. It's just
their commune. Yeah.
Yeah. It's people talking out their ass and not having no idea that like just how unaware and ironic all the things they're saying are.
Right. Well, something too. I think it is quite possible that small group of women, maybe like 10 of them, 10 or 12 of them, it might be possible that every single white person they've come into contact with has been an asshole. That's like true. That's very possible. But, in the same way that, if every single, Chinese person I came into contact with was an asshole, if I were to say, oh, look, I got to get the fuck away from Chinese people, like I'm just done, people would call me out and be like, well, hold on a second. Right. There are a lot of good, a lot of good people out there, but I think one of the issues too, of course, you were going to hear the word microaggression. Of course, that word was going to come up. And
safe space. Those are the two that had to be there.
Yeah, and when you're dealing with something where so much of it is just subjective and how you're reading a situation, and if you could read it any way you want, so It's not that you're the type of person who is seeing a racist action in someone else and you're responding to it, and then the other person who you think is a racist is like, why is this person being a jerk to me? I didn't do anything. Right. It's maybe it's like this this sort of a snowball effect where it just becomes worse and worse. Yeah, I mean, I don't know, man. I don't want to hit like two below the belt, but
do it.
I mean, it looks like they were doing yoga, but I don't know what the diets are like.
There's a vegan diet and doing yoga. That was the that was what they were promised. That's what they were touting.
Which doesn't mean you're going to lose weight. It just doesn't. And like I said earlier, I've been on this like diet. I've been on a high fat, high meat diet. Kind of a keto, paleo sort of thing going on. And drop some pounds. Maybe that's what they need.
Yeah, put a little butter and matcha in your coffee. That's what I take in the morning now.
There you go. You do that? What's it like, the yak butter or some
I use Kerrygold.
Whoa!
Support my proud Irish ancestors and their Kerrygold butter, which is
there you go.
I'm told better butter, but I think it's just better bullshit marketing. But it's got my wife on board, so whatever. She does the shopping.
You got to get that Irish ethno state, going on there.
Dude, we already have an Irish ethno state. It takes place on March 17th. It's coming up pretty soon.
Oh, but St. Patty's Day is kind of lame in LA. It's a different.
It is pretty, and I agree. But I do an all day drinking thing. I'll be up with Mark Claire, who also is one of the hosts on this podcast. A bunch of our buddies. We're drinking at 6 a.m. and just power through all day. So we make it into a special affair. But I do hate that it's Saturday this year because that's that's amateur hour. I like to go on the weekday when I know it's just me and the alcoholics know to handle their shit. Nobody's starting fights.
Right on. Well, just talking about like the ethno, talking about ethno states, like in general, like, even looking back on, this, piece of garbage kid who, shot up the school.
Yeah.
Reports came out, soon thereafter that, he was a white supremacist and trained with white supremacists and, blah, 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 which was later debunked.
Right.
And for me, I was like, wow, how desperate are white supremacists that they're allowing someone whose last name is Cruz
right.
into it. It was like, wow, man, for a moment, it was almost like, hey, maybe they're opening their minds a little bit. And
I like that. That's where your brain went. You're like, hey, good for the white supremacists.
Yeah.
they're brought some more people in.
Yeah. Now the next thing we need is, a shooter to come out of this, black women's retreat, and it's like, they're opening it up a little bit.
Finally, maybe that's what they're doing there. Maybe they're doing it's like yoga to limber up for the terrorist cell that they're building to slip under the barbed wire. You never know, man.
You never ever know.
All right, let's wrap it up on that note. So, guys, I want to thank Lou Perez for being here with me. Always fun to have you on the show, Lou. And hey, plug away. Like, give some plugs to these people.
Sure. Well, thank you so much for. I'm sorry, I just clapped right there. I don't know if you heard that one. Yeah, thank you so much for having me back. I really appreciate it. I hope hope your fans enjoyed it. I hope whoever it was that asked me back will ask for me to come back again.
Somebody named Nicholas Cruz. Not sure.
Oh boy. Oh boy.
Should have had you on earlier.
I know.
Missed that window. Missed the opportunity.
Oh, son of a bitch. Yeah, you guys can check out We the Internet TV on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube, of course. And you can follow me on Twitter at Lou on the subway, and on Facebook too, Lou Perez. Check me out, and I love feedback and responses. If anything you guys like, let me know. Anything you might want us to cover, let me know, and I'll see what I can do.
All right, there you go. So, guys, I want to remind you all, while I've got you, that you can check out all of our podcasts. Just go to lionsofliberty.com. We've got all of our pods there. You can go check out the archives. Of course, you can support the show if you want to become a patron. And Lou and I are going to do a little talky talk after this official pod ends, and that's on our patron program. So you go to lionsofliberty.com/support. Or you could grab a T-shirt. We got some designs. One of them, I promise, will make your pecs or breasts look great. I believe it's an Electric Libertyland T-shirt. V-cut really pumps up the pecs. So check that out as well, guys. And, of course, Mark Claire on Mondays with his in-depth interviews on Liberty. Check that out. John Odie Odermatt on Fridays with Felony Fridays. That's also good stuff. So, from me, guys, Brian McWilliams here. And from Electric Liberty Land, always stay plugged in to Liberty.